You all look so chipper. I know it's early. I know it's early. So who here is currently using their Forever GI Bill, their Chapter 33? You're getting BHA, you're getting all the bells and whistles? Okay. So for those of you who did not raise your hand, what benefit are you using, if any?
Chapter 35.
Chapter 35, okay. I know there's a few who didn't raise their hand. Anybody else? Anybody here in the National Guard? Okay. Did you do a 6-year contract, 4-year contract? 6 years, okay. What state? Iowa. What's Iowa's benefits look like for a National Guard?
They got scholarships in the National Guard. It's like 9 grants per year.
Okay.
And that's like for the state. Other than that, there's nothing.
Okay, all right, no, good to know, good to know. I'm a former National Guardsman myself, so I always like to see what states are doing what. So, all right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Everyone get excited. We're at NatCon. We're in lovely Orlando, Florida. And, oh, hi. So we're gonna have some fun today. My name is, ta-da. All right, so I'm Ashley Gorbolja Maldonado. I am a former and still, if you will, a student veteran myself. I'm pursuing my second master's in public leadership. I have obtained my first master's in public health. I've gotten my bachelor's paid through Army National Guard, the state of Ohio. I've used every possible benefit. I will say I'm a non-combat, non-deployed veteran, so I was never able to use the Forever GI Bill like many of you are using currently. So I had to get super duper creative when I was trying to make my way through school. So a lot of these opportunities and things that I'm going to discuss are from both personal experience, professional experience while I was working in higher education for about 5 years. I ran a veterans education program at Cuyahoga Community College. So this is, Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, helping veterans understand their benefits to, everything possible under the sun, from transcripts to ACE accreditation to what classes are going to be paid for and what aren't. With that being said, I am the founder, if you will, and CEO of Guide on Education Consulting. It is my version of communications and marketing to help folks better understand the Military Connect community. This came from a long stint of support, not only from the American Legion, my internships, and my school experiences, but allowed me to start my own business. I currently freelance with the American Legion, so if you haven't checked out our amazing table and tower, please come check us out later. I am a co-host for our podcast. And then finally, I work for the Veterans Administration and Veterans Health specifically, so I am a public affairs officer. So I do all of these different things, so note that I am going to throw out all these different experiences and kind of craft in some of my story to kind of give you an idea of how to use some of these, both scholarships, your GI Bill, and any other supplemental pieces and parts of that GI Bill specifically to make sure you're getting the most out of your experience while continuing on with your education. All right, so really quick, just a quick plug for what I do. So like I said, Guidon for me is a veteran-focused consulting agency that I just help people understand what we're doing. I think that there is, I wouldn't say I think there's a misinformation about like who we are, what we do. There are great organizations here who understand our purpose. We know our purpose and mission, and finding that next slot or motivation as we're continuing our education is incredibly important. So this is just a little bit about what I do. So course overview. So I'm a super nerd. I'm just going to be honest with all of you. I'm a big nerd. I love to color code things. I love to let you know exactly up front what we're going to be talking about today. And that's why I gauged a little bit on what benefits you are and are not using. So in section 1, we're going to go over the post 9/11 GI Bill review. So most of you are probably using it pretty standard. I'm taking my classes. I'm getting my BHA. But I'm probably more or less getting a traditional 4-year degree. So by a show of hands, who's here is using it for undergrad and a 4-year traditional degree route? Okay, perfect. So we'll learn a little bit more about GI Bill and how you can use it throughout your academic, journey or pathway, if you will. We'll go into some other benefit programs, and based on just what the audience has given me, I'll go a little bit more in detail on how you can stack some of these benefits if you're eligible. I will say that eligibility and entitlement to benefits are very different things, so keep that in mind as we're going through that section. Scholarships, I'm sure a lot of you are here wondering, how in the heck do I do scholarships, and how do I do them right, and how do I get them, right? So what's unique about this, and I'll share a little bit of my story here, is I'm a recipient of over $63,000 in scholarships. I am completely debt-free with 4 degrees, well, about the 4th. And like I said prior, I don't have a forever GI Bill, so being really creative was very, very important. So I'm gonna literally give you every tip and trick that I have in my book to let you know how I did this, and crafting a story and a narrative that when you apply to scholarships, you're gonna just knock it out of the park. Leveraging resources. So what I've done today is I've curtailed a lot of our guest speakers or anyone that is here to give you an opportunity. If you didn't know they were here, now you know. Please go see them. They're in the exhibit hall. So between leveraging resources there, I'll go into some detail, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so a little fun stuff, because I know it's really early, and I have M&Ms, by the way, so I love participation. Yeah, okay, all right. Getting a good gauge on this now. So who is known as the mother and the father of the GI Bill? Anybody know? The American Legion is the father of all? Well, you're not incorrect. I'm looking for a specific people. I almost said persons, but that doesn't sound right. Go ahead. No, not Teddy Roosevelt. No one has any idea? Ooh, you guys, anyone like scavenger hunts? No, okay, we have one. We have 2. Thank you for being honest, okay? I love trivia nights and I love scavenger hunts, okay? So what I will tell you is that if you have not taken an opportunity to look at the GI Bill wall that is over by the American Legion section, I highly encourage you to do so. There's some really cool legislative background. So the answer is, ta-da! So this is going to be great. So you guys are going to enjoy this. So you've probably referred to your GI Bill as your GI Bill, right? But Harry Colmery is a past national commander, and he wrote it on a napkin at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C. The first draft of your GI Bill that we've used, billions of dollars worth and billions in returns from veterans from World War II on. This guy wrote it on a bar napkin at a hotel. So just to give you an idea of how some policies and legislation can start, that is legit what happened for the GI Bill. So notable mention is Warren Atherton. So he was the national commander for the American Legion at the time, and he pretty much put Harry front and center and said, hey, Harry, I need you to go listen to all of these folks. We've got hundreds of thousands of letters being rushed in to all of the congressmen and women. And this adorable woman here is Edith Norse. So there is a scholarship named after her specifically that the VA has put out within the past 2 years to commemorate her co-sponsoring of this legislation. So she was one of the first women in Congress, I believe from Massachusetts. Incredible woman. She had the longest, I think, run and stint in Congress up until 2012 when somebody else, another woman beat her out regarding like her continued service. So these are some amazing folks that are a continuous part of the veteran community. So I like, again, to start with some fun facts, keep you on your toes. So let's get into it. So I'm going to review the GI Bill. All right, so we know it's a very generous benefit. We have service, we've got stipends for textbooks, we've got supplies for up to 36 months. I'm sure some of us have learned already that a month of the GI Bill looks very different. It's not a whole month, so if you go to school and you start at the second or last week of August and you wrap up the second, third week of December, that only counts as a 0.5 of a month, and that can really alter your benefits as you're planning continuously as you go through your education. So all the ways that you can use this. So you can use it obviously for your four-year degree, which many of you are, vocational and technical training, including non-college programs. You have on-the-job apprenticeship programs, licensing and certification. You've got flight training, correspondence training. If you have tuition assistance top-up, you can use that in addition with your GI Bill. There's tuition assistance, so for our Guard or Reserve members, or for anyone who right, because most of us are probably out, I take it at this point. If you're on active duty, you're able to take coursework while you're completing your obligation contractually. So there's always opportunities to take a class or test out of a class. And then you have work studies and national testing programs, and then finally licensing and certification reimbursement. Has anyone used, just a show of hands, any of the licensing or certifications, okay, we have one. Oh, we have two. Excellent. Could you tell me what they were in, if you don't mind?
So I am a licensed massage therapist in the state of New York, and they reimbursed me for the registration, the testing fee, and the national test for about $1,000.
Very nice.
I was a firefighter paramedic in Texas, so I use it for my firefighter commission.
Okay.
And for paramedic for NREMT, AEMT, and NREMT P.
Okay, excellent. So I asked because every so often, it's just about the same percentage. Even if I have a room full of folks, there's only about 2 or 3 people who have ever used it, either to achieve a licensing or certification, or, here's my second one, who has used it for a national test? Okay, all right, same people. Okay, we get one more. What did you take the test with?
The
DAT? Okay, very nice. See, so we're about right on par with usually the statistics in which I find folks using these benefits. Anyone know anybody that's using it for flight training? Okay, we have one. Okay. So these are all the different ways that you can use your GI Bill. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail just, again, based on what everyone is utilizing. So with certification and licensing, so massage therapist, we've got EMT, firefighter. What's really popular, and for anyone who's interested in the consulting realm, there is your professional project management certificate. So that is something that you can aspire and look into as regards to other like professional certificates. Realtor is really common. I currently live in Washington, D.C., and between Washington, D.C. and my friends in California, if you're a realtor right now, you're doing really, really well for yourself. So for any of you that are also entrepreneurs on the side, having an opportunity to utilize the certification and licensing programs will help you make some money while you're going to school. I had a good friend while I was in school who went and, oh goodness, what was it? She was an exercise science major. She wanted to go and get like her cycling, I think it was just like your pretty standard the word is escaping me, but it's, yes, personal trainer, thank you. So she went and she got all of her certifications for personal trainer while she was continuing on with her education, and she was able to have her GI Bill cover that. Yes, it will take like a portion of what we've discussed, the months of how that will break down. I always will tell you that you want to sit down with someone who's done it before, or find someone who's done it, finding a mentor in any of these programs. So this goes also for apprenticeships and on-the-job training. So this is where it gets a little tricky. So I put and this is the only one I put this on here because I'm still learning how apprenticeships are being, like, how they're being calculated. So whenever you work with your VA corresponding or your certifier, you've got, oh gosh, they go by so many names. So let's just go with your certifier at this point. If you're working with your certifier, making sure that with your long-term plan, if it is aspiring for that 4-year degree, how do I utilize an apprenticeship, say on my summer session or in between my winter break when I'm not at NatCon? So this is a really interesting benefit, but skilled trades are incredibly popular, and I highly recommend that you take note of this because this, yes? Oh, bless you. I was like, oh, okay. I was like really excited about apprenticeships. I love it. I love it. So this is another way that you can use your GI Bill. Testing programs, very, very straightforward. I know folks who have used this time and time again. GI Bill will pay up to $2,000 for each test. And you can even retake the test if they're passed, and if you have to do a continued recertification. So for my massage therapist or my EMT and firefighters, so if you have an annual requirement, just as you would for many of professions after you get your four-year degree or you go on to your master's program, your continuing education program, like if you still have benefits, these could be things that you could utilize. Flight training, so we didn't have really anybody in here, nobody's pursuing flight training. No? Okay, just want to double check. But a really great program, depending on if you were going to a private college or a state college, depends on the total amount that's going to be costed covered. It's rare for many states and colleges offering flight training, so there are very, very few programs. But always be wary that if you go to a school, you'll end up doing a 4-year track, and then there's additional funds like out-of-cost fees that may not be covered. But with a certification program as well, you could get your vocational flight training, which is like your private versus public. So it can get a little obnoxiously confusing with flight training, but with no one using it, we're going to move on. Let's see. That's a lot of money. We'll just throw that there. All right, so tuition assistance top-up. So tuition assistance benefit paid eligible to your Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard members. Typically, this will only cover 75% of your college tuition. I'd love it if it covered 100%. Each state, for example, if you're in the National Guard or Reserves, has a little bit of a different policy. I can speak to Ohio, for example. If I wanted to use it, it was only paying, I think it was at the time like $750, or it was either $550 or $750 of that credit hour. So depending on where I went to school and what that credit hour was, it would just subtract it, and then I would owe the remainder. But this was a great benefit. If you are a guard or reservist, for example, and you want to take summer classes, this is what I can say from personal experience, something that I did during the summers. So I would go to the local community college where I would know that the credits would transfer, and I would be able to use my tuition assistance in the summer and then go back to using my Guard scholarship or the GI Bill and vice versa. So there's a way that you can do this for each semester, unless you want to like completely truck through, say, a summer semester where you're using your GI Bill. And I recommend, of course, taking the full gamut of courses that you can to make sure that you're getting the most out of that benefit. So again, tuition assistance, it's here or there, it's hit or miss, depending on what state you live on, if you have it available to you. Okay, so at this point, we know that 100% of your tuition and fees are covered. You have your BHA housing rates based on your zip code. It's different for everyone all over the country. And you get up to $1,000 in your book supplies. And you do have the ability to transfer to spouse dependents. So other cost considerations, I have come across this a few times. So if you're in a private or a foreign school, your tuition reimbursement is limited to legislatively mandated maximum amount of it, which changes a year. So for example, if you say, I'm going to go overseas and I'm going to go to another school, like I've seen it happen. I don't recommend it because of the transfer of credits. It can be really confusing. But some of us who end up going to Guard Reserve, or if you're in tuition assistance program, and say you were taking a class or two using your GI Bill and you have to go overseas, and you took a class somewhere, you just want to make sure you're working with your advisor, that you have everything you possibly could need. So the current payout for maximum GI Bill is $26,000 for the 2021-2022 school year for private and foreign colleges. So for anyone who's thinking about that, that is an option. Okay, so anyone also going to a yellow ribbon school in tandem? Okay. What school are you going to? Auburn University. Who else? Urban College U?
Syracuse University.
Syracuse, okay. Syracuse, love Syracuse. Not that I love all my colleges and universities, but they do have a pretty bulky program if you all aren't aware. And was there another one? Any yellow ribbon schools? Okay. So yellow ribbon schools are great if, say for example, you have to move or you can't complete your degree at the same place that you were. Obviously the world is changing from a hybrid standpoint to being online. Whatever you fancy, know that there are schools out there that have this yellow ribbon program that will, if the tuition exceeds the GI Bill benefit that incurs with out-of-pocket costs, they'll be able to cover tuition up to 100%. Again, every school's different, but pretty standard. They'll cover the remainder of what isn't allowed. So additionally, I always put this caveat too for your like not-for-profit institution, so transferability of credits. I'm sure some of us have come across some issues, whether it's getting your Air Force transcripts or your ACE transcripts, and you're trying to see what from your service time rolls over. I know that was a pretty disappointing moment when I thought, wow, I have 8 years of service, and what do you mean none of this? I was like, I got out of a PE class. I was a little frustrated by that. I was like, I actually like to work out and exercise, so this wouldn't have bothered me, right? But when you get those transcripts, it's incredibly important that you take a look at what you have, work with your transcript or your bursar office, again, they go by different names, your administrative office, your military service center, to ensure that you have your military credits transfer over, but knowing that while you're at the institution, if you decide to leave that institution and go to, a for-profit, or if you're going to transfer in between schools, know that there could be a loss of credits, especially if you're really close to that final degree. I know a lot of folks who got caught up in some of the schools that got shut down. That was terrible. There were a lot of students who were just a lot of anguish about, one, getting their credits transferred over, and then also realizing like, oh, I have to now take another year or two to finish this up somewhere else. So with that being said, out-of-pocket costs, things to think about as you're creating your plan using your GI Bill. Okay, so some helpful tips to continue to maximize the most out of your current GI Bill situation, right? So we've got loading up on your classes in each term, using potentially your Montgomery GI Bill and your post 9/11 GI Bill. So for some of you that were on duty and may have paid into that benefit, there are sometimes an opportunity to utilize that either first, or sometimes you have to forfeit that benefit in order to use your post 9/11 GI Bill. So if you have that, you usually know. Most are like, well, how do I know if you know? It's like, well, at this point, if you're in your second or third year of your GI Bill, using forever GI Bill in this circumstance, you probably don't have this opportunity. All right, testing out of classes, I highly recommend it if you can. If you can. I hear a giggle. Yes, I know. I know exactly how that is. I have tried several times with no avail to myself, but it was a good attempt. Pat on my back. Guard and Reserve educational benefits are worth researching, and I say this because I've had friends who got out of active duty, they had been off 2-3 years or going to school, and they were like, hey, if I can use tuition assistance at the state level, or if they have a scholarship that I'm able to use, they're able to now, oh, wait, I'm not going to be able to use my GI Bill. I'm going to run out of my 36 months. What do I do next? So there are some folks who are like, I'll join the Guard or Reserve. So that's always an option. I know if Uncle Sam called me back and was like, hey, you want to come back? I'd be like, unless I get a direct commission or an act of God, no, thank you. So that being said, those are viable options and something to consider. Tuition assistance, let's see. Ooh, here's a fun one. Are any of you dually working on campus or have worked on campus prior to virtual kind of atmosphere? Okay. Was it working on campus? Was it as a work study? Were you a graduate assistant, resident advisors, anything of that sort? VA work study. VA work study is wonderful. If you can do a VA work study while you're on campus and you're an SVA, chapter leader or member, you can help so many people. Not only will you assist the folks in your office, you build a support network for whatever advisor you're working with. You'll have, some additional money, which is nice, especially if you're either working full-time or part-time while you're going to school. Who else had a, go ahead. Okay, all right. And anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. VA work study as well. Okay. VA work study? Yeah, I love VA work study. If your school is not aware of the VA work study program, make them aware. Okay, it's incredibly valuable. It's my personal opinion. I don't think it's a super heavy lift, especially if you've got a military service center, you've got a champion somewhere in that office. Even your SVA advisor could be a conduit to help you make some extra money, work in the office, learn more about your benefits, help other service members apply for their benefits, or really just kind of be a mentor on standby is really the way I see VA work study. So highly recommended. I did it my entire duration of school until I was no longer able to do it any longer. So it was a great way to make money, go to school, work another job, but it was a nice way to then also pay for books and some out-of-pocket costs, All right, also placement programs, and there are government reimbursements. So for any of you, in addition, if you're working full-time, there are different programs. Speak with your HR reps and look for different programs of interest. If you're looking into having a shadow or do any sort of observation for your degree pathway, highly recommend it. There are paid opportunities where you can continue to utilize your GI Bill and make some extra money. Okay, so the last thing to pay for school student loans, and I'm sure all of you may have encountered some friends or you've had to take out a very small loan to cover a cost. One of the things is people believe that they can't use other forms of financial aid with their GI Bill, or they can't in just general because they're like, oh, well, I'm getting the GI Bill, therefore I'm getting this benefit. And it's already a government benefit, it's a federal benefit, therefore I don't qualify. That's not correct at all. So the misconception is that GI Bill can be the only means of payment for tuition and fees. The truth is that you can apply for student loan, scholarship, and Pell Grants to supplement the cost of school. You can definitely do that. I can tell you firsthand, going in 18, 19 years old while I was still in the Guard working, I didn't fall into an independent status for financial aid, so I still had to call my dad and be like, hey Dad, love you, but I need all this information. I unfortunately, throughout my entire higher education career, I didn't qualify for a single Pell Grant because my dad made too much money. It was wild. So the way the system is worked out, it can be very frustrating. But if you do qualify, please apply. Please, please, please apply. And if you do have to take out a loan, which you probably won't have to, in this group specifically, really stick to your federal direct loan program, because here with the private loans, So with private loans, just if you can stay away from them as long as possible, because I know some of you have aspirations to go on to your graduate or postdoctorate or whatever you're going to do, just if you can stay away from these as long as possible, do so, because there are ways to pay for it, and that's where we're gonna go next. Okay, so it takes creativity to pay for college when you run out of GI Bill. So with a little bit of planning and a little bit of know-how, here's what we need to do. So researching, so whatever your personal and professional interests and skills are, take all of those things into account. I'm a big list maker. I'm someone who color codes things. Has anyone ever seen, or let me rephrase, is anyone a Park and Recs fan? Okay, I saw some really hands jump up really quickly there. I really appreciate that. I feel like sometimes I am the embodiment of the veteran Leslie Knope, okay? I got a binder for everything, okay? This is legit, a binder for everything, color-coded, tabbed, and I used to have, I wish I was really joking, I had a life binder while I was in college. It was the equivalent to a military love me binder. It was amazing. And every time I would think about what I want to do or I'd set a goal, I would write it down specifically to whatever my degree plan was. If it was I need to get observation and shadowing hours, if I need to, verify that this is true and correct, or if I have a scholarship deadline, how do I get to this point? And I tell you what, I don't know how many times I opened that thing up, carried it around, always had it on me. People actually made fun of me for a while. They were like, why do you do that? And I was like, because I just like to keep my goals close to my heart. Anyway, that's just me being silly. It's way too early for this. I'm trying to crack jokes and y'all are just not receptive. M&Ms, anybody? M&Ms? Okay, yes. See, that's what I like to hear, okay? I know it's, oh, sorry. Where's my other M&Ms? So she's on my back. So other ways that we want to continue to look for benefits. Oh, M&Ms too. Excuse me, sorry. I looked right into the projector and I was like, whoa. There we go. Oh, sorry, hon. So checking your benefits for the different schools, finding out which schools are VA approved. Note that you can use the VA GI Bill comparison. Sorry, it's giving me a headache. So you can use the VA GI Bill comparison tool, and then there's also a VA school search tool. Crunching the numbers, so how long is it going to take you to graduate? How much is it going to cost me? And then making that plan of action. So we'll scoot through this. So other benefit programs. All right, so the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program. So there are 5 different tracks. So for any of my disabled service-connected veterans, this may be an opportunity for you. So if you've used your GI Bill, and again, eligibility and entitlement are different, right? Just want to clarify. But with Chapter 31, VRNE, you can use any of these tracks to continue your education if you so qualify for them. So for example, I know a lot of folks who have utilized the employment through long services track. So that's basically finding out your eligibility for professional or vocational education training while you develop new job skills. So an extension of apprenticeship, really. Self-employment track for any of us that want to start a business. Do we have any business majors in here? My goal is to start a business kind of folks. So if you have any connected service disability, you would basically apply for this just as you would for your Forever GI Bill, again, post-9/11 GI Bill on VA website. You would do the same thing. You would end up getting a voc rehab counselor, and you have to forgive me, they just did a rename or a rebrand in the past maybe 2 years, I think so. Yeah, about 2 years. So rapid access to employment track is another opportunity. So veterans with service-connected disability, find out how you can start your own business. You've got, again, that self-employment. Reemployment track, which is return to civilian job you held before deployment. So that's usually applicable for some of my Guard or Reserve folks. In addition, I do have some friends who were, and this is a very specific example, was active duty Marine, decided to go in the Army Guard after he got out, and he was a railroad conductor before he joined the military, so he can go back to that job after his 20 years. And he's also a service-connected disabled veteran, multiple deployments, all of the bells and whistles. So once he's done with his 20 years, in 3 years, mind you, he's gonna go back to the railroad and make a lot of money going back to being a conductor. So he's got some opportunities to utilize some of these programs and plans. So he'll have a pension, he'll have all of the things that one gets when you are done with those 20 years, and then he's gonna go back and, just scoot along the railroad. It's great. So, true story, it's great. I absolutely adore this guy, but there are a significant amount of tracks here that can be used for your education. So Edith Norris, so we talked a little bit about her. She is, again, a pioneer from a political standpoint, but also she passed more women's legislation and veterans legislation in the, 20th century than I think any other woman. It's the most impressive thing I've ever seen. So they named this incredible STEM scholarship after her to help you extend your post-9/11 GI Bill or FRI scholarship benefits in addition to training in high-demand STEM fields. So I highly recommend that you check this out. Go to the VA website. You can type in just STEM scholarship or Edith Norris. You will find it. If you're currently enrolled in any undergraduate STEM degree program, or if you have a STEM degree and you're working towards reaching certification, you may be eligible. So highly recommend you check this out. The Veteran Employment Through Technology Education course, so for any of my folks that are in technology, coding, this is a great program. Right now, to my understanding, it's still a first come, first serve with the amount of money that's been allotted to the program from the government or just the appropriations. So the Vet Tech program can match you with leading training provider to help you develop your skills, start and advance your career in high-tech industry. There are also some really great programs out there like Vets in Tech. I do believe that they have a booth here today, so if you have an opportunity, please stop by and say hi to them. There are, again, other programs out there that are helping veterans duly take that course that's completely covered to them, and then they proceed through with their 4-year degree or any other certifications or apprenticeships. Yellow Ribbon program, so we already kind of spoke about this. If you are continuing on to graduate school of your choice or a doctorate degree, making sure that there's a school out there that will help you cover some of these costs. All right, so alternative programs. So we talked a little bit about Chapter 30, so your Montgomery GI Bill from active duty. You must have at least served 2 years in active duty. Montgomery GI Bill Select Reserve, so those are for my folks that are National Guard Reserve, right? We've got, I think at the last I checked, it was almost $700, and this is when I was in the Ohio National Guard. I got it about 3 or 4 years ago now. But you get 36 months of education and training benefits, so it's really attractive to, say, your active duty folks who go and use their Forever GI Bill. They're like, oh, I'll join the Guard and I can get some more benefits. I've seen people use this with 36 months after their Forever GI Bill. I've seen people use it in tandem with other benefits. Oops, let me go back. There's a National Call to Service program. This isn't really super common, so I'm going to wash over that. And then there's the Post-Vietnam Veterans Educational Assistance Program. So this is something that is typically for some of our more like non-traditional vets who have gone back to school. This program is pretty much phased out, to my understanding, for the most part. You rarely come across it. For this next program, VRAP, they just brought some of this back regarding just COVID-19 pandemic. If you're not eligible for a GI Bill or VRNA benefits, you may qualify for this program. So this is something that they've brought back recently to help folks in high demand areas. It was originally a program utilized back in like 2014 and prior. Really great program, highly recommend you check it out. Maybe it's something of value as you're coming closer to the end of your 36 months. All right, state veteran benefits. So early on I asked some folks where they're from. So I know we have some Ohio folks, we've got our Pacific Northwest, we've got everyone from all over the country. Every state, if you've never reached out or even looked at your state website, I highly recommend you do this, not only for scholarships, but for points of contact. And also there's different benefits per state that the state uses to attract veterans. So once they are done it out of the service, say it's where your last duty station was, or if you're going to a specific school and it's across the country, looking at what state you're in, or if you're ever going to transfer, fortuitously to, your graduate or postdoctorate program of your dreams, look at what the state has to offer. So specifically, I put up here, so for education benefits to dependents for veterans, so the states of Connecticut, Florida, the Carolinas, Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming all have programs. So if you have a family and you want to transfer some of your GI Bill benefit, this is an opportunity to do that with some of the state program benefits. And then, for example, I think we have someone from Texas here, right? Texas, yes. Everything's bigger in Texas. So in Texas, they have the Hazelwood Act, which pays for the service member and the dependent of the service member, but of course you have to be a resident. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you have to watch out for that. So I'm not from Texas originally. I'm from Hawaii.
Yep.
So when I moved to Texas, I did apply for Hazelwood, a lot of other stuff, and they immediately asked me, well, where did you enlist? And I said, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and they sent me back.
So that's true. So that's not incorrect at all. So if you are a resident of any of these states, so for example, if I went back to Ohio and Ohio had the equivalent to Hazelwood Act and I wanted to go back there after I'm done with my stint in DC and they said, hey, okay, that might be an option for me, but that's something to consider for anyone else here who is wanting to go back to their state of enlistment. So there are benefits and just check them out, look for scholarships. These websites, they typically look a little dated, but some of them are updated, I will say. But check them out. And then there are also for specific states with free college for disabled veterans, dependents, for example. So again, if you have a family, Alaska, Arizona, Kentucky, Louisiana, North Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, and Washington State all have programs for dependents. So, say again? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. So anything with state veteran benefits, again, you got to make sure you read the fine line. You have to know exactly what you're applying for, what's going to be in line with your eligibility. So, and I could always come back to this slide too. Got it? Awesome. All right, so scholarships, yay, what we've all been waiting for. Because y'all are like, oh my gosh, this woman, all this GI Bill stuff, I'm using it. I want to know how I get more money. You want the monies, okay, all right. So why are scholarships important? I really don't have to explain why scholarships are important, but the average debt for a student that is not a student veteran is almost $30,000 plus, and I'm sure that's going up because that's a stat from 2018. Now, with that being said, scholarships just make education process a little bit easier. They make your transition with your GI Bill, especially if you're going into graduate work or having to continue your education in order to get in the career and the job that you want. So with that being said, reduced need for work, less stress, it's a resume booster. It, I think, long-term encourages philanthropy. As someone who's always been very altruistic, selfless service is a part of who I am, but I will say I now give more to scholarships in my alma mater because I understand the value and impact of a scholarship and what they can do for a student. And also access to more colleges as well. So these are a list of types of scholarships, and I apologize, I probably should have put bullet points on there, but you've got athletic scholarships, academic full ride scholarships, STEM, military scholarships, which we'll get into a little bit, government scholarships. There are scholarships specifically for religion, women. There's no essays, which those are always wonderful, but those are going to be a toss-up, and we'll talk about that. Need-based scholarships, first-generation scholarships, workplace scholarships, non-traditional student scholarships, and there are student with learning disability scholarships. So it's very important that you know that there's not just a scholarship, but there is a scholarship that could meet your needs specifically and how to tailor your story and tailor your search to find those. All right. Okay, so the most significant source of scholarships come from your college. Do not let them tell you otherwise. This statistically is not always accurate. So most folks think that, oh, I have to go to all these extended like foundations and I have to do all this extra work. Many families don't know that like when you're applying for like these dozens of scholarships, the colleges have money to attract you. Depending on what school you're going to, there are options. All right, so the most prestigious, competitive, and highly ranked colleges do not provide any merit-based scholarships. This is interesting. So with these colleges and universities, they provide very generous need-based financial aid. So students do not receive scholarships because of their high GPAs or test scores or outstanding activities. So for example, like Ivy League schools don't even provide athletic scholarships. It's like a weird push and pull, if you will, but it's just something interesting that I found. Private colleges provide the most money, so mark that down. So if you're going to go to graduate school, you're going to get your doctorate, note that those folks are definitely trying to pull in a very diverse talent pool. So you just have to ask and say, hey, I'm really interested in X and Y school, but X school is providing me with this. Can you match it? Can you do more for me? So having those conversations are incredibly critical. And from a personal note, I can say that I went back and forth between my graduate schools. I was trying to figure out what was going to be the best fit. And I told them, I have $5,000 in scholarships. This is what I want to do. Can I take preemptively these classes before admission? And I will tell you, some of these colleges could not believe that I was even willing to do that before even getting admission. And I will tell you what, it helped me solidify my admission into medical university. So having these conversations is incredibly critical. But like I said, private colleges can be very, very generous. All right. Outside scholarships can affect financial aid. This is really important. So according to federal rules, if you receive an outside scholarship, colleges have to adjust your financial aid package so that the total aid does not exceed the school's cost of attendance by more than $300. So when you're working with your, whether it's your bursar office, whoever is your administrative office, coordinating with your scholarships per semester. So for example, if you were awarded a scholarship that is going to be given to you quarterly or by semester, making sure that you understand how it's going to be applied if you are using financial aid is very, very important. And you want to work with those individuals to make sure you're getting the most out of that and it's not being just kind of lost. I could tell you a handful of experiences where I had scholarships come in and they just sat around, and I kept getting these bill emails. I was like, why is this happening? I've done all the work. I just had to find the right person on campus to make sure that they knew how to apply my benefit on top of my 1606 Montgomery GI Bill Select Reserve, all of my scholarships, my National Guard, like just having those hard conversations and being very persistent. I will always tell people, like, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Just when you go to, like, I'm a former military police, so I'm used to going into a motor pool and asking people to police things up. I'm like, hey, like, I need you to do your job, right? And that's okay. We have to hold people accountable while we're in school. And when you find that person in the bursar office, you find that person in your military service center, like, those are your champions. Build those relationships. And I can tell you firsthand experience, I built such a great relationship with the lady who was getting all my scholarships. Not only did she know my first name, last name, but she knew what my favorite flower was and she knew what my favorite cookies were. And that woman made wonderful cookies and gave them to me every Christmas. And it was a great blossoming relationship, and she was able to take care of me for my graduate degree work. All right, so I spoke a little bit about this. Colleges use those scholarships to attract students. So for example, a California applying to a Minnesotan school adds to diversity. So musicians and artists applying to liberal arts colleges add to the diversity, et cetera. Us as veterans, we are the diversity. So moving on. Also, you don't have to have perfect test scores or straight A's to apply for scholarships, okay? So for any of us who have had a struggling semester, please know that it's not the end of the world and you can still apply for scholarships. I was not a straight A student. I definitely failed a class or two. I struggle with my anatomy and physiology. Like, there were a lot of things I had to redo, but even with like a 3.4 GPA, I was able to obtain scholarships. So please don't ever discount it not having a proper GPA, because at the end of the day, once you walk away from that degree, your employers, unless you're going into some graduate work that require a certain GPA, it's not something to beat yourself up over. So please apply. All right, don't apply to everything under the sun. I always tell people quality over quantity. You want to focus your time on like 3 to 5 per month of these kind of that are unique to your interests. So reducing the number of applications also gives you more time for revision, ensuring that you submit your best work, and look for scholarships that require more work and why. So when you have scholarships that have some lengthy application process, so for example, I was a recipient of the U.S. Army Women's Legacy Scholarship, and that one required me to write a very specific essay about what I wanted to do with my service afterwards and what I was doing currently that was giving back to my community. I think some folks probably strayed away from the amount of work that went into that, but because I knew I was an Army vet, a woman, like all of these boxes checked, that if I spent the time on it, it would be more of value. And so much so that I was able to get it back to back and up till the third time. And this is also true for there's an AMVETS Kakoma scholarship where I received, I think it was like $3,000 twice a year. I got an email right as I was moving into my final year and going into graduate work that they said, we appreciate your caliber so much and the quality of your essays and all the things you're continuing to do that we're going to grant you $4,000 for the next 3 years per semester. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. That's a heck of an email to get before Christmas, by the way. Like just the generosity of people. So know that when you're looking for these scholarships, that quality over quantity and being really organized with how you want to be perceived on paper. So it comes back down to the storytelling piece. So being original and being creative. So never open your essay with the scholarship prompt. I tell folks all the time that. Avoid using too many quotes. Don't plagiarize, stay on topic, make sure it's relevant. If you just start going off on your achievements and stuff, it's just not gonna. What I have found in the feedback that I've received early on was, we don't want you to laundry list, like that's what your resume is for. Like we want to know about you. So making sure that you are using like those 2 to 3 sentences to have this compelling grabbing your reader's attention is so important. All right, refining your search. So exploring national, state, and local scholarship opportunities. Call and ask questions and put a voice to a name. I can tell you every time I applied to a scholarship, I would call and try and speak with someone. Hi, I have a question about X scholarship because this aligns with my values, or if I had questions, I would just call. I know we're in an age of texting and emailing. I would email, I would call. I couldn't tell you how many times it came in handy in them creating that relationship. So when I had got a scholarship that had a late arrival, I was able to finagle all kinds of things to make sure that my bill and I didn't get kicked out of my classes because of the relationship I had with both the scholarship that I was applying to and received and with the actual university or college. So for example, looking at your local organizations, search your county foundations, very, very important. Always start local and homegrown. I have found that my local American Legion post would give me a scholarship, to the state American Legion would give me a scholarship. There were foundations that were helping homeless veterans in my community that I volunteered with. I found out they had a scholarship. I was volunteering for years before I even knew that, all because I didn't ask. So regional veteran service offices, so even your VSO, so going to all those websites, so Disabled Veterans of America, to AMVETS, American Legion, VFW, and then still conducting website search engines. So these are my tricks. So scholarship formula, build an Excel worksheet with all the scholarships of interest and required items. Itemize them, set reminders, create some inspirational messaging. You should not be redoing your essay every time. Like if you are solidified in what you are, who you are, what you're doing, that stuff doesn't change a whole lot. So that way you can focus on the actual essay prompt. So I always tell people my M&Ms are your messaging and your mission. So it comes along with your personal brand. So if you're gonna attend any other sessions, your personal brand and storytelling is so important in your essays, in your scholarship applications. Going to your writing and reading labs that are on your campus, utilizing those free resources to accurately and grammatically make sure that everything is just right dressed. Also, if none of you are using Grammarly, that is something you all should be using. It is the best. I don't know if it's the best kept secret anymore, but I love it. I love it. So that's another way to get around that. So setting reminders and requests and recommendations. Okay, so write, review, save, recycle, repeat. say it with me, write, review, save, recycle, repeat. You should not have to redo a lot of your essays. So once you start, it'll be a little taxing, but save everything. Pull from that. I can tell you by the second, almost year and a half I had left, I didn't have to rewrite a single essay for all of the scholarships I was submitting to. And I was submitting to an average of 3 to 6 per month. And it's still a lot, but that came with all of having all of this stuff in the background. Letters of recommendation and just making sure that you're forming a habit as you're doing this. Okay, these are the ones you need to jot down. These are real important, okay? Everyone take notes. So where you should start your search, okay? Scholarships.com, there is a veteran section there. College Recon. I stumbled upon College Recon back in 2018. I was doing some amazing work. I was interning for the American Legion, and a buddy of mine was like, "You've never heard of College Recon?" And I was like, "What is this?" Probably the most extensive website that breaks down by region, by locality, by state, by service branch of scholarships. And they also have School Finder. They've got a huge blog network of any possible question you could think of. Fastweb.com, Chegg, CAPEX, and then College Board. So College Board is one of the credentialed kind of folks that are like a mid-level, like federal kind of agency types. But they have a great website for you to find scholarships on. Okay, so leveraging resources. This is where we're going to start putting all this stuff together. So having a photograph of memory is excellent, but if you never what if you never develop it, right? So if you don't write the essays, if you don't take the time to invest in yourself, right? Because investing in yourself pays the best interest. And in this case, paying for college, after the exhaustion of your GI Bill, this is important. So making the most of your time. So utilizing your career service offices on campus, using those resume services, attending the job fairs, shadowing alumni, shadowing folks in your career field, talking to your professors after class, even though it's exhausting and you just spend an hour staring at them at the screen, whatever the case may be. Having those conversations where somebody can connect you is valuable. Getting involved in your student life organizations. So for all of you here for SVA, bravo. This is a great resume booster. In addition, the leadership that will then be annotated and kind of garnered not only from your military service, but also your continuation on campus. So the more that you're doing on campus, or say you're working with a nonprofit, putting that time into building your network is so vital, and it's incredibly vital also for the scholarship process. Working a part-time or off-campus or on-campus job that will boost your resume. Seeking out internships and fellowships for summer session. We'll get into that in a moment. Applying for those scholarships for all 4 years and continuation. And then traveling abroad for spring break, semester, whatever you can, get as much as, I'm serious, go and speak to your career advisors on campus. And then if you do have student loans, start paying those back. If you don't, good for you. So, and then also reflecting on your goals and progress, continued progress towards them. So quickly here, the difference between internship, apprenticeship, and fellowship. So internship are where you're a student or a trainee and you're working for an organization, and sometimes without pay. There are paid internships, by the way. Satisfying those requirements, basically you can use that to satisfy requirements with your career or your degree plans. Apprenticeship is usually a training program that's conducted in industry or undertaking where the trainee gets a chance to learn and earn at the same time. And then your fellowships are typically more competitive, short-term funding opportunities for graduate studies, scholarly research, or professional development. So they're funded, they're competitive, they're merit-based, they're short-term, but they're looking for the exceptionally exceptional. So for anyone who's seen the Pat Tillman scholarship, or that is a whole cohort, or the SVA, a VFW fellowship. So programs that are here that you need to check out. Service to school, amazing. If you're trying to get into some of your Ivy Leagues, these are the folks that are providing network and mentorship opportunities to get you there. They have the alumni network to do that. You've got the, I always say it incorrectly, but Posse, thank you, Posse. So the Posse Veterans Program, again, huge network of support for enrolling in your bachelor's degree program. Warrior Scholar Project, that's a great boot camp workshop lecture. They also have mentorship for student veterans as they prepare to enter higher education. So this could also be a program you use as a SVA chapter, mentee-mentor relationship. We've mentioned Syracuse. I know we have some Syracuse folks here. Institute of Veterans and Military Families for Syracuse, they have a whole plethora of resources and things that you can take from their website, from infographics to statistics, things that you can use to really, go to your champions on campus and say, like, I'm worth investing because, and here's the statistics. And those have always worked out great in some of my essays personally. Tillman Scholars Program, there is a VA college toolkit. That is something you can find on the VA website. Looking at all of your big 6 VSOs and your military service organizations. And then you have your federal and state agencies for both scholarships. Please look at those. Those are super, super exciting opportunities, and they're always looking for people. The Washington Center, they were supposed to be here. I am a Washington Center alum. I was one of 25 selected in 2018. With their Veterans Employment Trajectory Program. I got to intern for the American Legion in the Employment Education Division. Completely changed the trajectory of what I thought my career was going to go. Completely. And now I live in Washington, D.C., and I got one day a call that, led me to have the job created for me to work at the VA. So the Washington Center is a really great resource. VFW SVA Legislative Fellowship, if you're interested in policy, not just specifically policy, but there is an opportunity to have your voice heard on Capitol Hill. Veterans and Global Leadership Fellowship. This is a formal mentorship events and a lot of thought leaders throughout the U.S., so it's a structured 3-day course and then some. Pro tip, follow ProFellow if you're interested in internship and fellowship opportunities. It is a huge blog site where you will find every possible internship fellowship that is broken down tremendously, and it's very easy and accessible. And then those are some more White House fellowships, Service Corps fellowships. All right, so we're going to just do a quick wrap up. I know we have like 2 minutes, but putting it all together. So we've talked about your GI Bill, how there's some different bells and whistles to your GI Bill that you may not have known about, other benefits that are potentially stackable scholarships, how those scholarships can complement your GI Bill as you continue through, leveraging your community resources. All right, so we basically have gone through identifying opportunities to use while you're using your GI Bill experience. So main takeaways, it takes a lot of creativity, but you can pay for college using scholarships when your GI Bill benefits run out. There are programs that will leverage and boost your resume, and then making sure that you're doing the research, you're planning and taking the time to crunch those numbers and stay on track with your goals, and making sure, again, you have an accountability partner, whether that's your friend on campus, a fellow service member, an advisor, a mentee-mentor relationship. But we've learned a lot about what we can use the GI Bill for and what we can't. Oh, and I'm hitting all the buttons because we're ready to go. But if anyone has any questions, I just want to let you know I'm not touching it. So, there you go. Anyone have any questions? Yes?
Yeah, I have one. I saw on one of the slides that there's a Montgomery GI Bill refund. Can you expand on that a little bit, on what that is?
So this is specifically for your Chapter 30. So if you were on active duty, so the question was, what is a Montgomery GI Bill refund? This is a very specific circumstance where if you had paid into your Chapter 30 while you're on active duty, that you could have part of it, if not all of it, paid out to you. It's very, very rare that it happens because the way that it was formulated when the Forever GI Bill took hold is that you had to forfeit your Montgomery or your Chapter 30. So a lot of folks will not have that option any longer, but there are folks who have the contractual set to say, hey, well, I did pay into this, that haven't used it yet, that could argue it with the VA. So it's possible, but it's incredibly rare, given just the time frame now. Like if it were like, I'm trying to think, like 2000, anything from like 2010. I think 2010 was the last time I worked with a student that had that specifically, to give you a reference point. Any more questions? Yes?
So if you get the GI Bill to cover like the LSAT, for example, how much does that, like if you use all the 2,000, how much of your GI Bill does that actually use? Like is it an entire month? Is it a fraction? If you don't know, that's fine.
I don't know exactly how how the 2,000 is pulled out. There's some math there that definitely has to be done, I will say that. I think it's great that you want to use it for the LSAT, but it does pay up to that $2,000 point. But if you have to like retake it or stuff like that, like once you've hit that point, like that's it. But I don't know. I'd have to look it up for you, the way that it's spliced and diced and how it would subtract from that. I think the closest comparison I could give is whatever your current credit hour amount is. Let's see. I'd say anywhere from like a class and a half, maybe. I could be wrong, so don't ever quote me on it. But okay. Yes.
So how does it work receiving scholarship money? Does it always have to go through the school?
It's a good question. So the question is, how do scholarships work if they're not being run through the school? Now, if you are given a scholarship that is not, how do I want to put it? If you get like a mom and pop scholarship, whenever you're reading these scholarships, there's going to be these fine line items. They're going to say, must go through the school must report back any amounts that's not used. Typically, in my own experience, I found out like 9 out of 10 of the scholarships that I used, like they had to have some formality process, and I don't touch the money because they're, depending on the organization, they're just like, we don't want to have any situations where it's not being used for what it was intended for. So for that, that slim chance, if you are granted that money, you would pay it just as if you would just apply it to your bill. So it would be deposited to you, you would then pay for that. When it does go to the school, that's where it gets confusing, because then it's like, we're gonna move this money here, and oh, we have your financial aid, and then they have to do all this math, and then they get confused, and they're like, oh, well, we thought, and we're like, no, apply it all, thank you. And that's where those conversations come in. But it does happen. If you do find a scholarship, just make sure you're reading that very, very fine print. They will tell you what you can and cannot use a scholarship for, what it can be applied for, and they typically will ask for some sort of like, okay, what's next? So, yes, ma'am.
So for your question too, if you're using post 9/11 and you get a scholarship, if the scholarship is for tuition purposes, then the school has to deduct that from whatever they report to the VA. So basically, if you're getting post 9/11 at 100%, that scholarship really doesn't help you. But if the scholarship, you can use it for whatever you want, then in that case, the VA will pay your full tuition, and then you can keep.
Like a refund.
Yeah.
Right, you will get refunded.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
If I could just make one plug here, I'm from the Department of Defense. I actually work in the Transition Assistance Program and write the education curriculum. Please fill out the FAFSA, even if you think you cannot get financial aid. I work with a lot of higher education institutions, and what they're telling us is veterans are not getting scholarships because they're not filling out the FAFSA. Even if you don't qualify, they have to show first
You have to show
that
need.
you couldn't get federal aid, and that's why they're giving you institutional money.
Absolutely. Just accepting that, like, oh, I just because I have the GI Bill, I can't do it, will then it will hinder your application processes in the future, because you need to show proof. So when I applied to scholarships, I was able to say, my father, who had a single income family, but made $60,000, even though there were 3 children in school, the assumption was my father was like helping us all through college. So the only thing he qualified for was a Parent Plus loan if he were to help me, a Parent Plus loan. And then I could go back in my application and say, I applied and because of this situation, I don't qualify for any of it, and I'm not married, I'm not a deploy veteran, I'm not X, Y, and Z, therefore I can't be considered independent on my financial aid application. So I couldn't get any additional aid while I didn't have any GI Bill, right? And I'm relying on my scholarship from the Guard, and that's my personal story, like that's how the scholarship like kicked into high gear for me, because I needed to figure out a way to supplement it because I didn't qualify for anything. So I tell veterans and their families all the time, like, make sure that you apply for that financial aid, have it on record that you've attempted all possible avenues, because the scholarships will be like, you've checked all the boxes, okay. Because you could just say, oh, well, I didn't qualify, and they're gonna like prove it. So.
And every year,
Every year,
reapply
every year. Yes, ma'am.
And one last thing, also if you apply for financial aid and get denied because they're basing it on what money you made while you were in the service, I highly recommend you do an appeal. They call it a professional judgment, and then you can show that, hey, while I used to make that money, I no longer make that money because my time is over, and that should get you still the financial
I had to do that
That's,
to my pal.
yeah,
Mhm.
I did that.
Yep,
So even if
it's
you
very
get
common.
fees every time you keep doing it, like my wife makes too much money for me to get any Pell Grants.
I always tell folks, apply and just and check the box. Even if you do come back and it comes back, like I think it was your EFC or ECF, it comes back, like it will come back and it'll say no. But again, it just gives you more, gasoline to pour on the fire when you're like poking at scholarships and trying to figure out what you're going to do next. So.
Yeah, I have a question about voc rehab and like, because with vocational rehab, there's an option to like offer post 9/11 benefits if you have some left over. So my question is, does that still deduct, like if you opt for post 9/11 benefits, like let's say you have 3 years and you still have like your full post 9/11, but you were given the opportunity to use like voc rehab, and you choose to go rehab, but you opt for that post 9/11 benefit to get that post 9/11 mediation and all that, does that then still deduct from your post 9/11, or is voc rehab like totally separate from that, and are they not supposed to deduct?
It would be separate. It would be separate.
Okay, because they've been still taking from post 9/11, even though I fall under voc rehab.
Time to have some hard conversations with some folks. That is, no. Okay.
They actually just changed that legislation in April.
That's new.
Yeah, it's new. It's new.
So what I wound up doing was, so I originally went with voc rehab for all my fire stuff. All right, now I'm on voc rehab again to get my bachelor's degree. I'm trying to get a master's in social work to be a PTSD counselor. So what I'm wind up doing is getting my bachelor's on voc rehab on 31, 32.
It's 31. 31.
All right, then after I get my bachelor's, or post-grad, I have like 32 months left on post 9/11 GI Bill, and that's gonna be the master's degree.
Okay.
It just changed.
Okay.
They used to run concurrent, they used to run, they
Yeah.
used to take,
Okay,
yeah,
so
they don't
I
anymore.
just have to go look and see if they've still been taking.
And if you're talking to a counselor, just talk to that counselor.
Like, so you're using both rehab and you're going to use your.
Did you have one last question? I gotta wrap up.
Okay.
What happens when your end date for your benefits comes and you still have benefits? Can your end date be readjusted to use those benefits? I've requested a waiver to do that and been denied. Am I just flat out of luck, or is there a way to still use the benefits I have, which in this case is 28 months?
So, if anyone from the floor has anything, I'm
Is it Montgomery or?
pondering.
Forever GI Bill, which program?
If it was a forever GI Bill, this wouldn't be an issue.
Right, so it's a Montgomery?
It's
Montgomery.
the 9/11.
Well, no, the 9/11.
9/11 Montgomery. The end date was 15 years from separation.
Okay, yeah, okay. So that's chapter 30. So, what score are you at? Skagit Valley. Oh, I met a young lady by Kaylee yesterday.
Oh, you talked to Kaylee?
I did talk to Kaylee. She's great. let's talk after.
Any
Let's talk
advice,
after.
any
Yeah,
feedback?
let's talk afterward because I have a few thoughts, but I need to collect them. I have some ideas, but I definitely want to soundboard them first because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I got to go interview Jerry Lyon. And ta-da, we're all done. So thank you so much for your time. Anyone wants M&Ms, please? Yes, thank you. I literally overbought M&Ms because I'm like,